It is Thursday, May 4th, 2023. This is another edition of Baseball Today. That is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose. Producer Dan along for the ride as well. Do you do the whole May the 4th be with you thing? I don't know what you're into these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Star Wars guy for sure, so I didn't even know it was May 4th. So thank you for reminding me. The 4th be with you.
Here's your buddy, Chris Archer.
Yeah. I think mine's right there. You see him?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Excellent.
Skywalker. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. We have a lot to cover from Wednesday's games, looking ahead to Thursday as well. But unquestionably, in our opinion, the most important thing that came out of Wednesday was that Liam Hendriks met the media for the first time since announcing that he was cancer-free. Here is the White Sox all-star closer.
It was never a thing to me where I ever worried, I never self-involved and looked into it as a why me thing. I looked at it as a why not me. I mean, as some of you may understand, I tend to have a little rosier perspective on life than Gen Pop. So that was my process behind it. Like, look, I've got this is my next challenge. And we started looking into ways that we can make good of this, whether it be awareness, whether it be any sort of donations, whether it be helping out people in similar situations. We looked at it as an opportunity.
Awesome dude. So happy for him. And if you've ever spoken with Liam, he is different. I love it. He said, I tend to look at things a little differently than Gen Pop, which made
that was a good one.
That was really good because he is a little bit different. Baseball tends to be a very conservative sport. That's not who he is. He has always taken a leadership role. He was the face, essentially, of the White Sox Pride Night. He made it very important that he and his wife stood out front, while there are some in sports who haven't done that. When the pandemic was starting, he and his wife, once again, meals to the people on the front lines. He has always been active in his community, and the fact that he faced this head on does not surprise me.
Yeah, he's had quite some journey to get where he's at. I think that's why he has this outlook on life. I mean, he came up, with the Twins and, wasn't really like a high touted prospect. He got there as a starter, didn't really work out. And he's just put the work in, dude. He's put the work in and changed himself, obviously, into one of the better relievers in all of baseball. And I think because he's overcome some early struggles in his career, and then just found that perseverance wins. He's able to have this outlook. And so I think he probably took that into this battle. And like he said, he's looking for the positives in it because he knew that if he just, stuck to the process, that chances are that he was going to come out of this thing looking good. And he has. And you're right, man. Turning himself into a leader, being part of the community, that's big for him. And every time I see him, kind of doing stuff like this, it just makes me happy because I saw the early struggles and I love where he's at now.
Yep. Happy for him, excited for him, and we'll love it when we see him back on the mound, which could be in the very near future on the south side of Chicago. Awesome for he and his wife, Christy. I think it's fantastic. Very quickly, the White Sox have won 3 in a row, including a couple over the Minnesota Twins. Last night, it was Keenan Middleton that got the save opportunity, and he was fired up afterward. Now, this is a guy that has kind of played a bit role in his time in the big league, spent most of his career out in the American League West competing against the Houston Astros, and so he still harbors some ill will against the likes of Carlos Correa. He said, I even noticed I was going to face Correa in the 9th inning, ended up getting him on a 1-2 pitch to finish the game, and he said, yeah, good, I'm happy. That guy's a cheater. Very rarely have we heard guys outwardly talk about either current Astros who are still there or past Astros, guys like Correa, and use it as motivation. Did that surprise you a little?
A little bit. I mean, you're allowed to have your opinions, and, we all know what, came out of the, 2017 team there with the Astros. Obviously, Correa was a part of it, and it is going to follow him wherever he goes. It doesn't really do much for me. If he wants to use it as motivation, sure. But I don't think Carlos Correa is going to let that bother him. I think he'll be all right.
No, it won't let him. No, I mean, it won't bother him at all. I just thought that it was kind of interesting that now 6 years after the fact that a guy's bringing it up and trying to use it as fuel.
I think around baseball, you'll find a lot of guys with that opinion. A lot of guys were not happy with, what went down, myself included. I'm kind of now, I feel like enough time has passed and we've kind of, talked about it enough where it just kind of doesn't faze me anymore. I don't even think about it, to be honest with you, most of the time. But clearly he still harbors some ill will towards them.
All right, let's move on. Thursday's a big day for the New York Mets. Of course, they just got swept in a double dip in Motown. But today marks the debut of Justin Verlander. And because of the timing release of this show, it'll be going on while Verlander is pitching. So we'll be talking about that part of the equation, most likely on Friday's show. This comes just 24 hours after Verlander's current and former teammate in Detroit, Max Scherzer, made his return from his 10-game suspension for the foreign substance ban. He did not look good at all. And the Mets starting rotation has not looked great. Are you worried big picture about this, or do you think now with Verlander back and hopefully Scherzer getting back into some sort of rhythm that everything should be okay?
I sure hope they don't have to deal with this kind of like inconsistency the whole year, because they put together a strong rotation, at least on paper. We haven't seen Verlander at all this year. We haven't seen Quintana at all this year. If you match those two guys up with Senga, who's been pretty dang good. He's been erratic at times and walked a little bit too many people. Without those walks, his numbers would look much better. Scherzer, I think, will figure it out. I'm not too worried about him. His spin was down a little bit last night. His velo was down a little bit last night, but that could have just been because of the layoff. I'd like to see another start out of him. And then, Cookie has not looked good and he's on the IL right now. So with all those guys healthy and going right, like you could dream upon that rotation, but you can't expect that to happen all year long. So some of the guys that have come up and replaced them, like, McGill's looked okay, serviceable, but the depth was tested, and I don't know if the depth is there for them. So if they're going to rely on these guys to be healthy all year and then do their thing, I guess that's one way to look at it. I always tend to say you need more and more and more. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Mets went and did something at the deadline. I think that JV coming back will be a nice little, we'll see. We'll see how it looks. If he comes back and rights the ship and you have JV looking like Cy Young winner JV, I think that things will look a lot better for them, obviously, and maybe he'll spark the rest of the rotation. But they're going to have to call upon some depth, and I don't know if they necessarily have it within the organization right now.
It's tough that you're relying on a 40-year-old to be able to kind of maybe save a portion of your franchise, but I think you're right on, to be honest with you. Do you know that today Verlander will be the 10th different starting pitcher the Mets have used in their 32nd game? And that is alarming. But we did talk about this during spring training, and we asked, is the rotation too old, right? You've got a 40-year-old, a 38-year-old, Cookie's what, 36 or something like that.
Yes.
Senga, the new kid in town, is 30. They don't have a lot of up-and-coming guys that you're like, oh, here we go. It's tough. It's tough. And there's a portion of Mets fans that wonder if all this money we spent was wise money spent in the offseason.
I think it was wise money spent. Okay, I get look, once Verlander gets back here, I think we're all going to be looking at this a little bit different. I have extreme faith in this guy to go out there and do. I don't care about his age. He's proven that he can do it. He'll be fine. I think Scherzer's a little bit more concerning with me, seeing the velocity dip as much as it did. He talked about having some struggles, figuring out his rhythm out of the stretch. The spin is interesting. He said he didn't change anything in his routine. Maybe it was the cool air. He couldn't get a grip on the ball. Not so sure about that. We'll have to keep a lookout on that. But again, to me, it's like you bring these guys in who have that age. I'm not going to call it a problem, but they're a little up there in age. I feel like you need to have some real good depth pieces to call on. And you mentioned 10 starters already. They've called upon them and they haven't done exactly, what they needed them to do. Although they've held afloat, the record is there overall.
Yes, but team. The starters have given only 4 quality starts so far. That is the second fewest in all of baseball. That's not going to be good enough. And it's always interesting because when you look at, there's a fine line between experienced and old. And you just never know when a player's going to jump that line. Like I remember talking about the Phillies, the team that won in 08, the team that made it to the World Series in 09, and then the team that lost to the Cardinals in 2011. And then right after that, they kind of fell off a cliff. So they went from this grizzled, tough, veteran-laden squad to, oh, my God, they're getting lapped by these kids. And you just want – at some point, Justin Verlander's going to be 55 years old, and he won't be able to do what he was doing at 30.
Sure.
But last year he did it.
Exactly. Think about this rotation. If all back and we're in June, right? And we have Verlander leading the way with Scherzer, whose velo comes back, because I really believe it will. He'll be okay. Senga, Quintana, and Lucchesi, like, that sounds pretty good to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's if they're all healthy, though. I guess that's the point of the question.
Don't forget about DP, too. He can throw it a little bit from that left side as well. All right, let's talk about New York's other team, if you don't mind. The New York Yankees, congratulations to that series win over Cleveland with a come-from-behind and eventual walk-off win with a bunch of serviceable parts doing their job. However, before the game, the GM of the depleted Yankees spoke with the media.
Don't count us out. Don't give up on us. But we're not currently flying at the level that we would have expected because we're missing some really important pieces, which I think anybody would acknowledge. But in the meantime, it's also part of it, and you got to withstand it. So we got to find a way to continue to tread some water at the very least, and not slide too far out of it while we're waiting on some important pieces to come back.
Some would say he used the injuries as an excuse. Do you hear it that way? And if so, do you think that flies in New York?
I don't really hear it as an excuse. I mean, it is what has happened to their roster. I mean, these guys have been injured, and I know it's kind of been like a storyline with the Yankees over the last couple of years is keeping guys on the field. But I mean, look, when you go into a season, and this is what we're talking about, like roster construction, like that's what a general manager does. Like he puts a roster together. Like you envision your team healthy. You understand there's going to be injuries, so like you have to have your acquired depth that guys that you think could step up in those situations. But for the most part, and you're thinking like at least 80% of the year we're going to have our guys, and they just haven't had that. Whether it be in the rotation with Rodon and Severino, like getting those guys back will be awesome for them. Whether it be having Judge and Stanton in the lineup every single day posting up. I know you can't expect that necessarily out of Stanton, but you want him in there more often than not. I think where everyone, that follows the Yankees, what they talk about is, well, like, okay, with a healthy lineup, yeah, we're great, but we're calling upon guys right now that maybe shouldn't necessarily be our depth pieces. We expect to have better depth pieces. Although, like you mentioned, Willie Calhoun got the job done the other day. Jake Bauers has come up and done some things. But I think that's what Yankee fans expect. Just they wanted their depth to be a little bit, I guess, more proven, if you would. So I think that's where that lies. But as far as using injuries as an excuse, I don't think he's using it as an excuse because it is what has happened to their lineup.
What do Yankee fans want? That's what I want to know. Like I think they're still bitching and moaning about the Kiner Falefa Donaldson deal. You're a year and a half past that. Let's move on. You could look at every team and say the same thing.
Sure.
And now, if you want to go back and say you shouldn't have traded for Giancarlo Stanton 5 years ago because you knew that he was a walking Band-Aid, fine. You want to say that. Great. I guess I'll listen to you on stuff like that. If you want to say that you shouldn't have traded for Josh Donaldson, we'll look at what Matt Chapman's doing. Well, Matt Chapman, he went down before he went back up, right?
He's been pretty solid.
He's been great this year. But
this year and the other years.
His numbers dipped a little bit, and then they have come back up. It's just
sure.
I don't know exactly what Yankee fans want. I mean, Aaron Hicks had a few good years. You end up signing him to a deal, and at the time, everybody's like, "Oh my God, we're only paying Aaron Hicks $10 million a year." And now he's everybody's favorite target practice. I just don't know what New York Yankee fans want. Aaron Judge is out of the lineup. Giancarlo Stanton is out of the lineup. When they're in the lineup, they're not the best team in the American League. I don't think they're the best team in the American League East right now, based on what I've seen. The one team that's always able to withstand whatever gets thrown their way is the Tampa Bay Rays. And they're built with a bunch of players that nobody wants. Yeah, the Dodgers, too. Yeah.
I think that's what people expect. It's you look at some of these teams, and it's a handful. It's the Braves, it's the Dodgers, it's the Astros. I guess it's the Rays. You include them in there as well. But when their guys get injured, it seems like whenever they call somebody up, they get the job done. Whether it's just serviceable or, they have guys like Outman that come up and just crush the ball. Like, that's what teams like the Yankees want to be on that tier of teams, and they expect that. The fans do. And they just, as far as like bringing players up to perform, they haven't done that. We've seen, Volpe's been better as of late, but overall his numbers are just okay. Cabrera and Peraza are getting a lot of run right now. Those numbers aren't looking good. So, like, I think they expect those are your highly touted guys that, shouldn't be like leading the way in a healthy lineup, but right now they have to take a bigger role, and they just haven't performed to expectations.
Except, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't these the same Yankee fans that were saying, where the hell's Volpe last year? Like, this is what you asked for.
Yeah.
So you were like, play the young kids. You cannot have it both ways. So stop. Aaron Judge will be back soon, we think. Volpe has been okay. He hasn't been great. He has not been great.
Volpe has come on as of late and done really well. I think that he, like, in a role that he should have, which is not batting. I don't think he should be up at the top of the lineup.
He shouldn't be
down the
batting
bottom.
leadoff.
That's a different look on his numbers. He's just being thrust into a situation because of injuries where he gets highlighted a little bit more. And I think he's been the best of those three that I mentioned. It's just like I said, when you look around the league, some of these teams are able to bring up players and they perform at a high level right away. And whether that's player development, whether that's just good scouting, there's a lot of different reasons for it. I think the Yankees fans want that and haven't been able to really get it in recent years at all.
Okay. All right. Let's move on from the East Coast to the West Coast. Bigger Los Angeles home run. Max Muncy with the walk-off grand slam as they came back against the Phillies, ended up sweeping a homestand against the Cards and the Phils. Or Mike Trout leading a come-from-behind victory with a 2-run shot, or a go-ahead solo shot, in the 9th inning in St. Louis.
What a freaking homestand for the Dodgers, right? Are you kidding me? That's
pretty good.
Nuts. I'm sorry. I guess maybe I brought the bad juju to the Phillies and the Cardinals. Gosh, I went to see both those teams play. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to go with Mike Trout, though. The Angels, I almost called them LA. I don't really consider that LA, but the Angels, have been playing decent ball. They go in there and they absolutely break the Cardinals, dude. They broke the Cardinals. Lamb with the tying home run, Trout with the go-ahead home run, Rendon with the insurance run there. It was really cool to see them do that after the game. I watched this 8-minute interview with Ollie Marmol and him just talking about his decision to bring in Gallegos and not bring Halsey back out there. And man, I actually enjoyed what he had to say. I thought it was a really insightful interview, but you can just tell they are searching and broken there right now. That's not to say they can't fix it. And I know I'm kind of going on a tangent now about the Cardinals, but I watched this last night. I wanted to talk about it today on our show. They are seemingly doing everything they can, according to Marmol. They're working hard. And the coaches are, doing extra work, trying to figure out what to do. They think they have the players. They think they're doing the right things. Their game planning is correct. All these things, they just haven't been able to put together wins. And it just seems to me like they're scrambling. They're in a rut and they just don't know what to do to get out of it. And the only thing they continue to tell themselves is to continue to push and to continue to go. And I think that might be the right attitude to have, but this is typically not the way that you envision the Cardinals approaching games. That was a big homer.
I want to try and take a look at it from the Angels' perspective, if you don't mind. A few things. First of all, that was Trout's first 9th inning go-ahead homer in 8 years, which is crazy to think about with his, as much as he's done in this game. You would have figured he would have run into one at some point. And I think it also allowed us to celebrate and enjoy what Shohei Ohtani did again yesterday. 13 strikeouts in 5 innings. I think that's tied for the most or fourth most or something like in terms of fewest innings thrown with most strikeouts. I know Greinke's done it. I know that DeGrom's done it. 13 Ks in 5 innings. That means you're recording 15 outs, and 13 of those guys are walking back to the dugout saying, what the hell did I just face? And, oh, by the way, he got 3 hits. And, oh, by the way, he joined Babe Ruth as the only players in baseball history with 500 strikeouts on the mound and at least 100 homers hit. So we continue to just enjoy what he's doing.
I got my tangent off about the Cardinals. I do want to talk about the Angels, and we kind of relate it back to the last question. You know, they bring in these guys, Hunter Renfroe and Brandon Drury, and I'm not saying those are going to be depth pieces because they're obviously going to be thrust into a starting role, but you bring in guys like this, these guys have performed. I mean, Renfroe right now has 120 OPS plus. Drury's been getting hot as of late. This is kind of what, like, you know, Yankee fans might want. I'm happy for the Angels. They've had, you know, I think their starting pitching's been okay. But the team has looked good. I'm not going to say they look great. The team has looked good, but they won 8 of the last 12, Chris. So.
Yeah.
Upward trajectory.
Pointing up. And by the way, for all you Dodger fans who are saying, why don't we talk more about the Dodgers? We will certainly get to them because tomorrow, you know who they start a series against? San Diego.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one down there in San Diego.
I mean, you want to talk about them? They look great. I mean, it's someone different every freaking night for them. Like they just have almost like a relentlessness to them where it's like, hey, you might get through the first 4 or 5 innings unscathed, but like you still got all these outs to get. Good luck. That's how it feels when you play the Dodgers.
Yesterday, they started their number 4 prospect, Gavin Stone, on the mound. I thought he threw the ball okay. You know, he did get knocked around a little bit, but, you know, I mean, it was his big league debut. His brother is making his Blitzball Battle 3 debut tonight, part of McFlurry Power. They'll be out there. Who are they taking on? Como from Columbia, Missouri. There are a couple of college kids from the University of Missouri, and they are Blitzball players. So we'll see. They're kind of outsiders joining our party. We'll see how they do. So make sure you tune into that tonight, 6 o'clock Eastern. Everybody will be in the chat. So far, the 3 games have been amazing. Ton of fun.
Yes.
Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit after this last thing, which I would like to bring up. Wander Franco.
Yeah.
It is the play that everybody outside of baseball is talking about with the rarely seen mid-air ball flip while fielding a grounder and then throwing it to first. Super cool or too casual?
I mean, did he make the play? He made the play, right? So it's cool. We're going to drop that ball. We've been talking about this a little bit differently. I don't know. It's something. I don't mind it because, like I said, he finished the play off, and he is, I mean, he can do whatever he wants on a baseball field right now, seemingly, right? Like he has the ability to change games in a second. And he also has the ability to play like a little kid on the field. It's awesome to watch. Kind of remind me, like, do you remember like when Miguel Sano took a ground ball and kissed it before he threw it across the diamond? Very, very similar to that. And I would never do it. But I had fun watching it. I guess that's my take.
Could you do that? You could do that, right?
Everyone in the big leagues can do that, but would they do it in a game? That's the difference. Do you have the balls to do that in a game?
Yeah, so the game wasn't close. Kevin Cash was asked about it afterward and said about 3 words, or 4 words, or whatever it was. He made the play. And that was it. I mean, you could tell he didn't like it because I don't think he wanted to condone it.
Cash 100% did not like that.
Okay.
But also, I mean, what's he going to do?
Right. And I mean, I think it's good for baseball. It's fun. It does have a lot of people that don't talk about the sport talking about it last night on social media. Like there are people who are strictly in the football space, and they're like, this is the coolest thing I've seen on a baseball diamond.
Why?
He
flipped the ball up to himself. I mean, look, again, during a game is different, but like, you know, technically speaking, just anyone could do that.
Okay, then do it. Let's see more people do it. Seriously, set a trend.
I didn't have $300 million like just waiting for me. I couldn't do that. Okay. If I did have that contract, shit, you might have seen me do some silly stuff. I might have played hacky sack with a ball before I threw it over there.
Okay. I like seeing it. I dig it. I'm on board with it.
Wander's comfortable, Chris. He's comfortable.
I know. Yeah, were you surprised at all some of the backlash he received?
I don't know who was giving him backlash. Bunch of old people.
No, there were some people who, I'll tell you this. I saw a young person, I'm sure she's in her 20s, that works at a place I used to work at, who was like,
okay,
this is ridiculous.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. You had to explain to me why it's so ridiculous. I mean, the
don't
only
know
thing
either.
you could say is like you're giving yourself a chance to make an error, put a base runner on, and have your pitcher throw more pitches, which is, I understand that part of it, but he made the play.
Right. He made the play.
Made the play.
And that's
Yeah,
the
I
end
mean,
of the
look, if
day.
you drop that ball, Chris, it's completely different. The situation is differently. We're not saying like, oh, like that was fun. But like, dude, what are you doing? Like, come on.
But he didn't.
But he didn't, exactly.
But he didn't. It's just like when we see guys do their stuff on the mound where Johnny Cueto's doing this and Nestor Cortez is doing this. And then if they end up hitting a guy and then the next guy hits a home run and then they end up losing the game. But he didn't.
Could you do that? That's the question.
I can't do that standing up without the ball. I can't. I'm
going to film a video today of me in my backyard fucking doing that.
Please. I hope you do. I hope you do. All right. Blitzball Battle 3 continues tonight. Warehouse games. Join us live in the chat. We've been getting over like 2,000 people in the live chat, which has been awesome. Go tell your friends. The series has been amazing. Every team will have played one game. Oh, it is a big game. Every team will have played one game after tonight. Series continues every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday at 6:00 Eastern. We are back at it Friday. We will preview a couple of huge series. Tampa, New York, LA, San Diego. Talk to you about Verlander, a few other things that are happening in the crazy baseball world for our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, and the uber-talented Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose. We will see you Friday on Baseball Today.